The earbuds weren't tangled, just disrespected. One cord dangled off the desk like it had been yanked out mid-song. The other coiled tight beside my cracked coffee mug. I stared at them too long, not because of the music, but because I knew exactly which song would have been playing. It was mine. Not just the playlist, not just the mood board, not just the vibe. The whole pitch, repackaged, delivered in Ryan's laid-back genius voice, and now stapled to a bonus check I was never even told existed. Let me back up. Our office sat on the third floor of a brick building downtown, wedged between a boutique wine distributor and a Pilates studio that always smelled like eucalyptus and regret. We were a creative agency, small, scrappy, weirdly obsessed with artisan pens and artisanal espresso. Clients ranged from local breweries to mid-sized tech startups looking to feel cooler than they actually were. I'd been there 4 years. Long enough to know how the place worked. Short enough to still be invited to the company happy hours. My title was Senior Brand Strategist, which basically meant I pitched ideas, built campaigns, and tried not to roll my eyes when the founders talked about storytelling synergy like it was a new religion. Ryan started 6 months ago, came in hot, former freelancer with a couple slick client wins under his belt. Wore canvas jackets even in 90-degree weather, and acted like copywriting was a spiritual calling. He wasn't bad, I'll give him that, but he was more show than substance. He knew how to perform in meetings, how to throw in just enough buzzwords to sound visionary without saying much at all. Our boss, Jenna, loved him. "He's got pitch charisma," she said once, after a meeting where he'd pulled a metaphor out of nowhere about branding being like a campfire. Warm, flickering, inviting. I'd heard the same bit on a TEDx talk 2 years earlier. But hey, maybe Jenna missed that one. The point is, I was used to being the guy behind the guy. The one who sketched the skeleton of the pitch, built the strategy, curated the mood boards, crafted the tone, and yes, picked the music. That's where this story really begins. Not with the bonus check, with the playlist. It was a Thursday afternoon when Jenna called us in for a brainstorm. New client. A Nashville-based sustainable footwear brand trying to rebrand themselves from crunchy to cool. Think Allbirds meets thrift store chic. They needed a campaign in 2 weeks. Full deck, copy, visuals, vibe. I was excited. This was the kind of project I loved. Lean team, high creative ceiling, tight timeline. I spent the weekend working. I didn't have to. No one asked me to. But something about the brief lit me up. I dug through old mood boards, walked through downtown for real-world inspo, snapped textures of brick walls, neon signs, a woman's thrifted leather boots clicking on the concrete. I curated a playlist on Spotify, lo-fi indie tracks, some retro funk, a few unexpected transitions to keep the energy sharp. It wasn't just background noise, it was the campaign. Monday, I came in early. Had everything sorted into folders, visual concepts, narrative themes, brand archetypes, even an annotated list of the songs and how they mapped to different campaign stages. I knew I'd probably be presenting Friday, maybe the following Monday. So I figured I'd float a few of the assets to Jenna and Ryan early. Collaborative transparency, right? I uploaded everything into our shared campaign folder. By Wednesday, Jenna pinged us all. Ryan will be presenting the first pass at the pitch to the client Friday morning. Great work, everyone. I froze. I hadn't seen any of Ryan's notes. He hadn't asked me for anything. I checked the campaign folder. My assets were there. Slightly renamed, rearranged, but they were mine. The playlist? Still public on Spotify. Still under my name. But now linked in the deck. No credit. Just a slide that said Vibe Reference. I told myself to wait. Maybe he was just borrowing a few things. Maybe he'd reference me during the pitch. Maybe Jenna had assigned him to speak, but the whole team would be acknowledged. Friday came. The client call was at 10. Ryan presented from the glass conference room. I watched from my desk. I had Slack open, one AirPod in, half a protein bar on the corner of my keyboard. My leg bounced the whole time. He opened with the music. "The heartbeat of this brand," he said, "is in the rhythm of the city. We built a sonic foundation to carry that emotion." Then came the campaign title, Threadbare Grace. That was my phrase. I'd pulled it from a thrift store receipt I found folded in my pocket after the weekend walk. He rolled through the slides, my slides, color palettes I pulled from vintage postcards, typography pairings I mocked up, a customer persona named Sam, built from a real person I'd talked to at the farmer's market on Saturday. Ryan used it all, smooth as bourbon, cool as ice. Jenna smiled the whole time. The client applauded at the end. I got one Slack message from Ryan after the meeting. "Nice base work, man. Let's build it out together next week." I stared at it like it was written in another language. Then I got up, walked to the kitchen, and stood there for a long time with the fridge door open, letting the cold spill out onto my hands. Monday morning, there was an email. Subject line, Q3 performance bonus distribution. Jenna's note was short, celebratory, thanking everyone for a strong quarter, naming Ryan explicitly for stepping up creatively on the footwear account. "This was a real client win," she wrote, "and it's only fair to reward that level of initiative." The bonus? 15 grand. 15 grand. I didn't get one. Not even a mention. Not even a thank you. I clicked back into the campaign folder. The metadata on my original files still showed my name. The playlist still had my initials. The annotations were all in my voice. But it didn't matter. He'd presented it. He'd performed it. He owned it now, at least in their eyes. The earbuds were still on my desk when Ryan walked in later that morning. He tossed his bag on the floor, took a long sip of his cold brew, and said, "Man, what a weekend, still buzzing from Friday. You doing okay?" I nodded. He grinned. "Don't worry. I told Jenna we should loop you in more on the next round." I could feel my jaw tighten, but I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because here's the thing. I wasn't going to fight him in the open. I wasn't going to scream or file a complaint or make a scene. I was going to take my time, document everything, and wait for the right moment. Because if there's one thing I've learned in 4 years of brand strategy, it's that the story always belongs to the one who tells it best. It was 7:41 a.m. on a Tuesday when I clicked open a blank Google Doc and typed a single line. Threadbare Grace, original creative attribution log. No title case, no formatting, just that. I wasn't even sure why I started it that way, maybe to keep it neutral. Not a call-out. Not yet. But I knew if I didn't get things down while they were fresh, I'd lose track of what belonged to who. And if Ryan ever tried to pretend this was all a collaborative blur, I'd have something to back it up. The office was mostly empty that early. Just me, our part-time admin, Nina, unpacking fruit crates near the kitchen, and the smell of burnt toast from someone's bagel experiment in the communal toaster oven. I plugged in my earbuds. The same ones he'd yanked out, the same ones still dangling on my desk Friday, and pulled up the playlist. It opened in Spotify, still titled Urban Reclaim. 17 songs, 48 minutes. The first track was Gold on the Ceiling by the Black Keys, the one I'd used to open the pitch mood. I copied the list, pasted it into the doc. Next, I dug through my folder history, the raw, time-stamped files from before the deck had been polished. Some were screenshots I'd taken of storefront graffiti. Some were layered Photoshop experiments I dumped in a Temp Visuals subfolder just to jog ideas. I opened the brand brief and noted the line, Campaign Kickoff Deadline, September 9th. The date was August 27th when I'd uploaded the first draft. Ryan's version of the deck? August 31st. Same font hierarchy. Same color scheme. He'd changed the order of the slides. Removed my initials in the footer. But the bones were the same. I added that to the document too. I wasn't thinking revenge. Not yet. More like insurance. At 8:12, Jenna rolled in with her signature turmeric latte and a loosely knotted scarf that made her look like she'd just stepped off an airport tarmac. She didn't see me in the back booth near the window. Her attention was on Ryan, who strolled in 2 minutes later. Fresh press button-up, same smug confidence like he woke up moisturized by compliments. She laughed at something he said in the kitchen, probably about the client's Instagram repost over the weekend, and I felt my stomach twist. There was no HR department here. Not really. Just a freelancer we looped in for contract stuff, and Jenna's vague commitment to open dialogue, which meant no protocol, which meant I'd have to play this smart. That afternoon, we had an internal review meeting. No client present, just our core team, me, Ryan, Jenna, and Melanie from visual design. I came armed, quietly, with printouts. Ryan presented the updated deck. "We're nearly there," he said, clicking through with one hand on the table like a professor mid-lecture. I've refined the voice to feel more grounded but aspirational. The product's still the hero, but now the narrative flows from real-world use cases. Melanie nodded. Jenna tapped something into her phone. I waited until slide 13. That was the one with the brand story. 3 short user personas: Sam, Jules, and Arlo. Urban creatives with eco-conscious lifestyles. Each had a quote. I raised my hand. Casual, not hostile. "Quick question," I said. "You still using the narrative personas I built from the field notes?" Ryan blinked. I tweaked them a bit. "Right. Just making sure we're referencing the original sources. The Sam persona came from a real interview I did, and the Jules one was based on your sister's friend, right?" Melanie looked up. Ryan's mouth opened, then closed. "Yeah, I pulled that from your doc, yeah." Jenna waved it off. "We're one team, guys. Attribution's great, but let's keep momentum." "Of course," I said and smiled. Just tracking source inputs for the archive. That afternoon, I added another section to the attribution log. I titled it Slide Annotations, Narrative Ownership Points. Each bullet listed which persona came from which observation and where the original source file lived. It wasn't revenge, still insurance. But then Friday came, and everything changed. I'd booked a day off for a dentist appointment and a lunch with my brother who was in town for a job interview. It was supposed to be nothing, a casual Friday. But around 2:10 p.m., I got a Slack notification on my phone while I waited for my coffee at Barista Parlor. Big news! Jenna just announced Ryan's heading up the upcoming Roscoe Spirits pitch solo. Roscoe Spirits. That was our whale account. A regional bourbon label looking to rebrand nationally. Huge budget. Full campaign autonomy. Everyone had been waiting to hear who'd lead it. I wasn't even looped into the prep. No invite, no file folder, nothing. Just one emoji-filled Slack thread blowing up with congratulations. People tagging Ryan. People saying, well-deserved, and can't wait to see what you cook up. It hit harder than the bonus, because the bonus was transactional. But this was legacy. Portfolio gold. Agency trust. I scrolled up, trying to find some hint of a meeting I'd missed. Nothing. When I got back to my apartment that evening, I sat at the edge of the bed, still holding the to-go cup from the coffee shop. Ice melted into a slosh at the bottom. I opened the log again. This time, I renamed the file. Creative Attribution plus Internal Displacement Chronology, and added a new line, Roscoe Spirits Pitch Lead, assigned without creative team input. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I printed the whole thing, all 12 pages. I slid it into a plain black folder. No logo, no markings, just quiet weight. The next Monday, I came in early again, but I didn't head to my usual desk. I walked straight to the founder's office, Thomas Crane, co-founder, occasional advisor, the guy who only stepped in when SAT really mattered. His door was open. He was sipping something green and disgusting from a mason jar, reading a client quarterly. "Hey, Tom," I said, steady. "Got 5?" He looked up, surprised. "Sure." "Close the door?" I did, and then I sat down and put the folder on the desk between us. No drama, no performance, just, "I think you should take a look at this." Because if Ryan was going to build a brand on stolen rhythms, I was going to make sure the credits rolled properly. I used to think credit didn't matter if the work was good. If the brand hit, if the client re-signed, if the campaign landed, wasn't that enough? But it stops being noble when it starts costing you. Thomas didn't open the folder right away. He looked at it like it might bite, like I was handing him something radioactive, or worse, political, which in this place was pretty much the same thing. "You want to walk me through it?" he asked, resting both forearms on his desk. I nodded. "It's a timeline, file history, campaign metadata, internal pitch assets, all from the threadbare Grace deck and the footwear client." "Ryan's campaign." I hesitated. "Ryan's presentation. Most of what's in there, that's mine, from before he even touched it." He raised an eyebrow but said nothing, flipping open the folder. The soft rustle of pages filled the space between us, broken only by the whir of the wall AC unit cycling on. I didn't talk while he read, didn't interrupt, didn't hedge, just sat there and waited. Every page he turned felt like peeling off a scab I'd been ignoring for weeks. After maybe 5 minutes, he stopped on a page where I'd included visual comparisons. My original slide thumbnails beside the final pitch deck screenshots, my playlist dates, my persona notes. He let out a small breath through his nose. "Why bring this to me?" he said finally. I didn't answer right away, because the honest answer, the one I wasn't sure I could say out loud, wasn't just about Ryan. It was about my whole damn career. "I've had my work lifted before," I said finally. "Not here. Before. At my last agency in Chicago." He looked up. I was junior then. Built a whole rebrand pitch for a nonprofit art org. My CD took the entire thing, changed a few fonts, and pitched it under her name. They gave her an award for it. I cracked my knuckles, out of habit more than stress. I told myself it didn't matter, that what mattered was the experience, the process, the client outcome. But I started seeing my work show up in her deck on other projects. Recycled, reworded, and when I left, no portfolio, no proof, nothing I could call mine. Thomas nodded slowly. "So yeah," I said. I told myself I wouldn't let that happen again. He sat back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. "And you're sure about this, Worma?" he asked. "As sure as the timestamps." That part I knew. I'd triple-checked. Screen-recorded folder history, backed up Dropbox versions, preserved the Spotify metadata. Hell, I even had photos of my handwritten ideation notes next to the sandwich I ate that weekend, time-stamped by the camera. "I'm not trying to get him fired," I added. "I'm not even looking for the bonus." That part wasn't entirely true, but I want it acknowledged. I want the work I did seen, especially before the next campaign gets built on more of it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he closed the folder and tapped it lightly with his index finger. "I appreciate how you brought this to me," he said. "No noise, just facts." "Thanks. I'll take the weekend to look through it. You'll hear from me by Monday." I nodded and stood. As I opened the door, he added, "You ever think about creative director?" I turned. "I mean," he said, "it's clear you think about the whole brand arc, not just the visuals." "Sometimes," I said, careful, but it's always gone to the louder guy in the room. He nodded again. Well, let's change that. I left his office with my chest a little tighter than before. Not in a bad way, but in the way you feel when you've finally done something, even if the outcome is still in limbo. That weekend, I didn't check Slack. I turned off email, walked the river trail, cleaned the apartment, called my brother, who'd landed a second-round interview and wanted my opinion on moving to Nashville. "You sound different," he said. "Different how? Like you just punched someone in the mouth, but politely." I laughed. Not far off. Monday came, and so did the shift. It started small. Ryan came in late, 9:45 instead of his usual pre-coffee swagger at 9:15. No cold brew. No "how was your weekend?" banter. Jenna didn't do her usual team alignment huddle. Her door stayed closed. At 11:06 a.m., an all-staff email came through. Subject: Internal Creative Recognition Updates. It was short, professional, and about as vanilla as you'd expect. But one paragraph stood out. "In reviewing recent campaign attribution practices, we're implementing a new protocol for tracking internal creative contributions, including mood board origins, playlist authorship, and pitch deck ideation. Special thanks to Marcus H. for initiating this transparency process following the Threadbare Grace project." My name, not buried in a footnote, not whispered in Slack, printed in the middle of a company-wide email. By noon, 3 coworkers had stopped by my desk. Melanie gave me a little smirk. About time. Caleb from Dev gave me a fist bump. Finally, someone called it. Even Nina, our part-time admin, nodded on her way past. "I always said you were the secret sauce." I didn't gloat, didn't post anything, didn't change my Slack status to "told you so." But I saved the email. At 3:45 p.m., Ryan messaged me. "Hey man, can we talk?" I ignored it for an hour, then replied, "Sure, conference room in 10. He was already there when I walked in, sitting with one leg crossed, fingers drumming the table. He looked tight, not angry, not relaxed, just trying to find the right mask. "You went to Tom," he said. I didn't deny it. I documented what happened, gave him the timeline. He let out a sharp exhale. "You could have just come to me, man. You didn't come to me when you took my pitch." It wasn't like that. I didn't say anything, just stared at him until he looked away. He tried again. "Look, we collaborate here. Things blend. No one owns an idea completely." "Right," I said. "But we both know not all ideas are born equal." He bristled. "You got the bonus, the credit, the client handshake. I got a playlist link buried on a slide. That's not collaboration. That's curation. And you didn't even credit the curator." He stood, pacing now. "This isn't a courtroom, Marcus. It's branding. It's creative flow. You start gatekeeping the process, and it chokes the whole vibe." "Then maybe we need better gates." He stopped. There it was. The moment he realized I wasn't backing down, that I wasn't the quiet guy in the back anymore, the one who'd keep carrying the weight so he could take the bow. "You want to split Roscoe?" he asked finally. 50-50 pitch? I paused. That was unexpected and tactical. "No," I said. "I want to lead it, solo." He laughed once, bitter. "Jenna already tapped me." "I know, and Tom outranks her." He stared at me. I nodded. "Check your inbox." I walked out before he could respond. When I got back to my desk, there it was. A new calendar invite. Roscoe, Spirits Kickoff. Lead, Marcus H. And beneath it, in the notes section, one line from Tom. "Let's see what your version of the fire looks like." Halfway through adjusting the mic volume on the conference room Zoom setup, I saw him in the reflection. Ryan, pacing just outside the glass wall like a shark with too many teeth and nowhere left to swim. I didn't stop. Click, click, tap, test, 1, 2. I was hosting the Roscoe Spirits kickoff. Not co-hosting, not assisting, leading. And the irony was, I wasn't even nervous. Not because I felt superior or bulletproof, but because I had finally gotten to that rare, weightless headspace where your work stands on its own, and you know it. I'd built the deck alone, not out of spite, not to prove a point, but because I finally trusted my creative instincts enough to not ask permission every time I chased one. I didn't rehash threadbare grace, didn't try to remix what had already been stolen. I started fresh. A new playlist, a new angle, a new metaphor. Every bottle tells the same story until the label lies. That was slide 1. I used black and white photography of old Tennessee distilleries, paired it with warm, copper-accented overlays, wrote out consumer journey segments like they were song lyrics, short, punchy, half-rhymed. Roscoe loved it. Halfway through the pitch, their VP of brand literally turned to their CMO and said, "Why the hell haven't we done this before?" When it ended, Tom shook my hand, quietly, firmly. The kind of handshake that doesn't say "good job." It says "next steps." Ryan didn't attend the call. Technically, Jenna had told him to observe silently after last week's correction memo. He didn't take it well. Hadn't spoken to me since. But he stayed late the night before, I noticed. I saw his Slack status go red at 11:22 p.m. Something was brewing. I figured it would come to a head soon. It did. But not in the way I expected. It was Friday afternoon, a little after 4 p.m., when I stepped into the supply closet behind the design bullpen just to grab some foam boards for a side concept. The light flickered like always. The room smelled like old expo markers and oat milk cartons someone had forgotten to recycle. And on the counter, carelessly left under a folder, was a printout of a slide deck. Not mine, not Roscoe's, something else. Top corner label, Next Gen Solar, Creative Campaign Preview, Draft. Authored by Ryan L. I wouldn't have looked twice, if not for the second slide. It was a carbon copy of something I'd mocked up 2 months ago. Same font pairing, same tagline, light isn't cheap, it's chosen. Even the background photo, a high-res crop of a cracked solar panel from a junkyard shoot I did in June, was unmistakably mine. I knew the fleck of lens dust on the left side because I'd meant to Photoshop it out and forgot. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't inspiration. It was a pattern. Ryan had built a second pitch, this time entirely off one of my old abandoned campaign ideas, and was planning to present it as new. I took photos. Not to escalate. Not yet. I just needed proof, again. But this time, I didn't go to Tom. This time, I went to Jenna. I knocked on her office door around 5:10 after most of the team had cleared out. She was packing up a tote bag, Bluetooth earbuds already in. "Got a sec?" I asked. "Sure." I closed the door gently. "I found something," I said. "It's about Ryan." She exhaled. "Marcus, let me finish." I opened my phone, showed her the side-by-side, my original pitch, his new deck. I explained the timing, the metadata, the overlapping design elements. I showed her the file from June, the photo, the line. She stared, didn't argue, didn't interrupt, just nodded slowly. "Is this the second time?" she asked. I raised my eyebrows. "Second that you know of." She ran her hand through her hair. "I can't protect that," she said, almost to herself. "If this goes public, it puts us at liability with the client." "I'm not trying to burn him," I said, "but this is a pattern, and if it keeps happening, I'll handle it." "And Jenna," I added before she could dismiss me. She looked up. "I want it in writing this time, Attribution policy, portfolio acknowledgement, across the board. She didn't flinch. You'll have it by Monday. When I left her office, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel much at all. Mostly tired. But under that, something steadier. Something like clarity. Because I finally understood what was really at stake. It wasn't just about a playlist, or a bonus, or a pitch. It was about legacy. About leaving behind something that couldn't be stolen just because you didn't speak up loud enough. That weekend, I bought a fresh notebook. Thick paper, black leather cover, no brand on it. On the first page I wrote, "Every great campaign begins with silence, until someone has the nerve to narrate it." And under that, the title for my next concept. I wasn't sure if I'd pitch it here. Maybe, maybe not. But this one was going to have my name on it from day one. He's stepping down from the Roscoe account. Jenna said it like she was announcing a weather change, not a career rupture. No drama, no spin, just a quiet update in Monday morning status meeting. I sat 3 seats from her, pen uncapped, pad untouched. Across the table, Ryan looked like he'd been drop-kicked through a humidifier, pale, damp at the collar, trying not to squint at the fluorescent light overhead. Nobody said anything. And that silence? That was new. Because for 6 months, Ryan had been the one with the gravity, the storyteller, the room reader. He could pivot on a dime, spin half an idea into gold, talk past a missed deadline with one well-placed compliment and a quote from some half-remembered Fast Company article. But now, he just looked like another guy who'd pushed too far. After the meeting, he stood, didn't say a word to me, just gave a slow nod. Not a truce, not even a wave. Something more like recognition. I watched him pack his bag and walk out without looking back. I don't know if he quit, or if Jenna told him it'd be easier if he just explored other opportunities. But by Wednesday, his nameplate was gone, his Slack profile deactivated, his cold brew still in the fridge, untouched, unlabeled, slowly separating into coffee and ghost. I didn't gloat, because the truth is, this wasn't about him. Not anymore. The new attribution policy went live by the end of the week. Jenna shared it in a company-wide meeting with a printed handout and everything. Portfolio acknowledgement standards and source attribution. Real HR grade stuff, but it meant something. My name was listed under initial contributors for 3 past campaigns, including Threadbare Grace. They even updated the case study page on our website. One line, small but sharp. Campaign concept and mood development initiated by Marcus Hale. I stared at it longer than I should have. Because if you've never had something taken, not physically, but quietly taken, you don't understand what it means to finally see your name placed back where it always should have been. It's not about ego. Not really. It's about proof. About being able to say to yourself, I was here. I built this. I mattered. A few weeks later, we presented the Roscoe Spirits campaign to their national leadership in a downtown Nashville hotel ballroom. Hardwood floors, vintage Edison bulbs, a tasting table lined with their new product line, all labeled with the branding I had helped create. The new tagline ran across a 12-foot LED screen. Nothing fake ages well. That was mine. Nobody changed it. Nobody softened it. Nobody pitched over me. When I stepped up to present, the slide behind me glowed amber. I looked out across the room, took a breath, and started talking. Not selling, just telling the story. Our story. Their story. My story. Afterward, the Roscoe CMO clapped me on the shoulder. You ever do keynotes? She asked, smiling. Because you've got a hell of a voice for it. I laughed. Not yet. But I was already thinking about it. That night, I walked home. Didn't Uber, didn't call anyone, just walked. Downtown Nashville smelled like bourbon and heat. Somewhere nearby, someone played an acoustic set under string lights. I passed a mural of a fox in a suit painted on the side of an old thrift store. I'd passed it 100 times, never really seen it. When I got back to my apartment, I dropped my bag, peeled off my jacket, and reached for the earbuds. Same ones. Still a little scuffed at the jack. Still tangled. The way things get when you've been busy working, fighting, winning. I plugged them in. Hit play. The playlist started exactly where I left it. Not a note out of place. But it sounded different now. Not because it changed, because I had. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.